Good afternoon. I am Hyun, Director General for Planning and Coordination at KOSTAT. It's my great honor to announce the successful conclusion of the 8th Global Symposium on Low Fertility and Aging, co-organized by KOSTAT and the UNFPA. I'd like to express my gratitude to all the presenters, panelists, and moderates who generously shared their expertise and insights into policy responses to low fertility over the past 2 days. A special note of appreciation goes to Julia Bunting, Director of UNFPA's Program Division, and Arthur Turkson, Chief of Seoul Representation Office of the UNFPA, for their meticulous preparation and unwavering effort in making this symposium a success. The symposium focused on 7 policy areas for low fertility: parental leave, support for young people, childcare, financial support for childbearing, housing, gender and social norms is my favorite session, and assisted reproduction. By convening experts and policymakers from around the world, representing the UN system, academia, civil society, the private sector, as well as the governments, we facilitate in-depth discussion on key determinants of low fertility and explore practical policy responses to address them. In addition, the symposium served as a platform to examine how to reframe low fertility as an opportunity and positive social transformation, rather than seeing it solely as a challenge. So, I sincerely hope that the insights and outcomes of our symposium will lay a strong foundation developing various response measures which can widely share the international communities and contribute to shaping effective national policies. Looking forward, KOSTAT remains committed to strengthen our collaboration with the UNFPA and supporting global efforts to address the challenges and opportunities presented by low fertility and the aging society. I extend my deepest gratitude to all the participants for their contribution to this symposium, and I look forward to future opportunities for meaningful discussions on these critical issues. As we conclude, I hope your time in Korea has been fulfilling, and I wish you a safe journey home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yumi. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, and dear friends here in Seoul and connected with us online over the last 2 days. Allow me to begin by expressing our sincere appreciation and gratitude to the Government of the Republic of Korea, and in particular our partners at KOSTAT, for a wonderful collaboration and their warm hospitality during this symposium, and to the Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat for your valued cooperation and hosting us over these last 2 days. Dr. Hyun, Director General for Planning and Coordination at KOSTAT, on behalf of the United Nations Population Fund, let me underscore how honoured we are to have joined you in convening this timely and action-orientated symposium, which has brought together a rich and diverse range of experts from governments, academia, civil society, and the private sector, and from the international organisations. I have the honour and unenviable task of trying to summarise and conclude these discussions. So during this symposium, we've explored examples of international best practices, challenges and opportunities and lessons learned from across, as Dr. Lee said, 7 policy areas. And together, we've identified critical policy gaps and recommendations for responding to low fertility and population ageing using a rights-based approach. I'd like to highlight the focus we've had throughout the symposia on evidence and data that has been apparent throughout these 2 days. As the United Nations agency responsible for being the custodian of the International Programme on Population and Development's Programme of Action, it's clear that as a progressive, sustainable and rights-based approach, it has to be underpinned by the data that we need and the analytics that we have. What's been made abundantly clear by the expert here is that no single policy or approach to addressing low fertility and population ageing will be enough. The determinants are multifaceted. Reflecting this, the policies' responses need to be holistic, addressing the barriers that individuals face to realising their fertility aspirations across multiple domains. It's also clear that the issues presented here cannot be managed in silos. Indeed, all sectors of society, including governments, the private sector, civil society, academia, and international organisations, have a powerful role to play and must work together. This is especially important as we work to dispel fears and anxieties and misinformation that tend to surround the issues of low fertility and population ageing. We leave this symposium with a shared understanding. Low fertility and population ageing are complex challenges that demand bold, thoughtful solutions across all areas of policy and practice. Despite many fears that in a world of 8 billion people, there will soon be too few people to sustain our societies and economies, not least the services on which those populations depend, experts say that falling birth rates do not have to spell disaster. Countries can anticipate and address the implications of low fertility and population ageing, including through the systemic collection and use of population data and the introduction of comprehensive policies that protect, respect, and enhance rights and choices of individuals. We must remain mindful of the negative impact that fertility targets and pro-natalist measures can have in restricting reproductive rights. We must work to create the conditions that enable individual women, men, and couples to realise the number of children they wish in order to adapt our societies and economies and make sure that our social protection systems, services, and infrastructures continue to respond to these demographic changes. So I want to try and briefly summarise a few of the key takeaways from the 7 policy discussions and panels that have framed this symposium. We started yesterday talking about parental leave and enabling families to thrive. One important reflection from our discussion was the important role of well-paid parental leave in shaping fertility decisions. As we know, inadequate support for parents, both mothers and fathers, can create financial and social barriers that discourage and delay family formation and compound existing gender inequalities. Government should implement comprehensive parental leave policies with equal entitlements for both parents. This will not only support families, but also encourage greater participation of men in caregiving and will strengthen gender equality and social cohesion, including in the workplace. Yesterday afternoon, we discussed supporting young people and creating stable foundations for their ongoing success. We heard loud and clear that young people in every region of the world face significant obstacles and often express insecurities about their opportunities and their futures. Among other things, government should do more to support the transition of young people from education to decent employment with decent pay. And at the same time, they should ensure adequate social protection systems. Both are essential to ensure that people can afford housing, when they choose to start families, they can afford childcare and education for them. I want to take this opportunity to share that with support from KOSTAT and in collaboration with experts from around the world, UNFPA is developing a global survey on youth aspirations, which will shed more light on the aspirations and also the anxieties and attitudes that younger people are facing and that affect many things, including their fertility aspirations and their family formation. Our final session yesterday was on childcare and reducing the barriers to families and the burdens to families. As we heard from our panellists and experts, access to affordable, high-quality childcare is essential for many parents to balance paid work and family life. Evidence shows that childcare services must cater to the diverse needs of parents and be aligned with parents' working needs and preferences. The physical accessibility of childcare services is also important, and we've seen a key role that companies can play here, offering on-site facilities to help parents reduce commuting times and enable parents to check on their children during the working day. We've also heard about the critical and sometimes underappreciated importance of providing good conditions and pay for the healthcare and childcare workforces. We started this morning talking about financial support for childbearing and about housing. Closely related to the issue around decent work and decent pay is access to affordable housing, the lack of which has been shown to hinder the ability of young people in particular to have children. Countries should consider how to provide targeted support for affordable housing and adequate housing. But in addition to this support, which helps to meet the acute needs and address the housing crisis that we're seeing in many high-income countries, government should also address the housing disparities that exist between urban and rural centres and to ensure that towns, cities and rural areas have the intentional planning and infrastructure needed to sustain appropriate housing environments. As Dr. Lee said, a really powerful session straight after lunch today was on social and gender norms. And our discussion highlighted the issue of gender and how entrenched inequalities between men and women, particularly around the division of unpaid care and domestic work, are fundamental. We must continue to ensure and tackle such gender inequalities and other social and gender norms if we want to enable people to realise their fertility aspirations. And we just concluded these 2 days with a panel on assisted reproductive health technologies that provided hope and aspiration and inspiration for our futures. The last session focused on highlighting the affordability and accessibility of services, the importance of access to information, of patient safety, ensuring the rights of all parties, and in balancing innovation, safety and ethical issues as we consider this as part of a wider focus on reproductive rights and choices, as part of a focus on reproductive justice. So beyond these thematic discussions, I also want to pull out some of the multilateral approaches that we discussed, and particularly the important role of the private sector. As I said earlier, it is clear that issues presented here cannot be managed in silos. All sectors, government, civil society, the private sector, international organisations, academia, have crucial roles to play, but particularly the private sector, often as the vanguards of change. They have a role to play in ensuring that work can be joined up and holistic responses to family life can be provided. Alongside government policies, employers can create workplaces that are more flexible, more family-friendly and supportive of gender equality. So we're delighted to have been joined over these 2 days by esteemed representatives from the private sector, specifically Dr. Lee from the Lot Card Company, Ms. Minard Kim from Hyundai, and Ms. Isabel Pugh from IKEA here in Korea. Each of them shared examples of the policy actions that their companies are taking and are championing, and we hope from which other companies around the world can learn. The final thematic point that I want to make, again, is on the importance of data and ensuring that policy discussions and decisions are grounded in evidence. It is clear that to be progressive and sustainable and rights-based, we need to harness the power and potential of data. Over these 2 days, we've had discussions that draw on the latest available evidence, on the research that we have. We heard earlier today from Professor Mills examples of new data that could helpfully inform our understanding of low fertility determinants and some of the policy responses. We also heard about data on the eligibility to receive parental leave. Again, who's included, who's excluded from these policies. We talked about geospatial analysis and combining data services, looking at distribution of geographic service provision and access. And we looked at the potential for different research methodologies, including, for example, randomized control trials and machine learning, just as some of the examples that have been discussed. So I want to conclude by sharing UNFPA's commitment. As noted throughout these 2 days, the Republic of Korea is seen by many countries around the world as a shining example of a country that has successfully managed to realise the first demographic dividend. Over the last half-century, by investing in health and education, in the human capital of its population, it has been able to achieve unprecedented level and speed of economic growth, achieve poverty reduction, and advance social development. many countries continue to look with great interest at the experience and success of the Republic of Korea and to draw lessons for their own development journeys. The world is counting on the Republic of Korea to again find a constructive, positive, evidence-based and rights-based approach to the challenges emanating from continuing demographic change that once again can be an example for others. UNFPA, including with our representative office here in Seoul, and with access to our global and regional network of advisors and experts, is proud to support the government of the Republic of Korea and its partners as you continue on your journey. I'm looking forward to deepening and broadening our partnership with KOSTAT, as well as other key institutions that I've had the privilege to meet, including through many bilateral meetings over these days, and to help facilitate and share the experiences of countries around the world. The Global Symposia series on low fertility and population, which has taken place now over 8 years, has been an essential instrument to facilitating this. But I also want to encourage us all to make even better use of these symposia in the future. There is strategic opportunity for academics, for policymakers, the private sector and civil society to get together, to outline a path forward and for a new stage of demographic transition that has so far received too little attention, but in the years and decades ahead will be a priority for every country in the world. So my call to action as we conclude this symposium is let us leave here with a renewed sense of urgency and purpose to help create the conditions where all people can realise their desired number and spacing of children. Our call to action is not just for governments, but for all of us. The solutions we've explored over these past 2 days are certainly within our reach, but they require bold leadership, collaboration across sectors, and a commitment to equity. Together we can build the future for our societies, the future that our societies need, one that is inclusive, sustainable, and supportive of all families and all population age groups. I want to give particular thanks to all of you for participating, and thank you to the incredible team at UNFPA and at KOSTAT for your tireless work over many months in bringing this whole event together and making it such a success. Thank you to all our speakers and to all the panelists for sharing your knowledge and expertise. I wish you safe homeward travels to all who have joined us here in Seoul and hope that to see you again next year, if not before. Thank you.